Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys quarter scale Star Wars figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at Boba Fett based off his appearance in his very own Disney Plus show, The Book of Boba Fett. Now I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have pay in 4 and a loyalty program. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, this box is freaking huge. This might just be the biggest quarter scale box that I've ever seen from Hot Toys. At the very least, he does have an art box. If you'll remember the quarter scale 19, the new version of the Dark Knight Batman, he didn't have an art box. It was literally a brown cardboard box with foam on the inside. This is a lot better than that. We have an image of Boba Fett front and center, and yes, it is the actual figure. Star Wars in a metallic foil print, his name and deluxe version, plus a quarter scale logo in one corner and the Hot Toys logo in the other. On the side of the box, nothing really to report here, literally just some logos. On the back of the box, a quarter scale logo, some contact information for Hot Toys. Don't bother trying, they couldn't care less about talking to their fans. Warnings, legal info, a barcode, and an unpiratable holographic Hot Toys sticker. Now, unlike the usual quarter scale unboxing experience, this is not a slipcover that slides off the main packaging inside. This time, there's a flap and it is held on with a piece of tape. On the inside, this is some real artwork. Hot Toys, this should have been on the front of the box all day long. It is so much nicer than the artwork on the front. It is the figure himself once again, in Jabba's / now Boba's palace. Down below his diorama base, a metallic foil quarter scale logo, and another metallic foil Star Wars logo. Underneath this, some foam, and interestingly enough, this feels a lot like third-party foam. What do I mean by that? Well, it's almost a little bit waxy versus Hot Toys' usual quarter scale foam. It was very plush and a lot darker than this is. A curious choice by Hot Toys. First in-hand impressions for quarter scale Book of Boba Fett. So far so good. He feels very hefty and premium. What we are going to do now though is get all of his accessories, don't worry, there are more underneath this tray, laid out in the light box, and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first, I've got no idea how I'm supposed to showcase this thing on camera. It's monolithic. We may as well start off with the smallest piece first. It's a bowl or a container of some kind. It's just some set dressing. There are washers in the crevices, the handle can't move and it can't open, it's just a solid piece of plastic. And there's some weathering on the surface that makes it look aged and filthy. Where is this thing supposed to go? Wherever you want. If you want it up the top, totally fine. If you want it down here, yeah, you can get that done. Or you can remove it entirely, it really doesn't have to be there. The stairs are interesting to look at, they're intersecting at different angles, a nice touch. He does have this clear flight pole and a crotch grabber. Now I know what you're thinking. What the hell is going on with the crotch grabber? Why is it so offset when the display base is so clearly very wide on the right side? I think that's by design, just once again to make this more visually interesting. Now the display base is heavy enough, even though this stair does hang over nothing, and he sits so far back to the right side, it's not going to topple over. This thing is nice and sturdy. There's some sculpted design work on the front of the stairs, some piled up sand in the crevices, and it looks realistic. There's speckling and multiple washes of paint all the way around. This is a nice touch. It almost looks like the substructure of what would be a concrete wall in Jabba's palace. And around the back, a mythosaur skull. They had to. Which means if you wanted to display the display base this way, take off the flight pole, have Boba facing you in this direction, well, there's nothing stopping you. In fact, I might do that from time to time in my display. On the other side, we have some little joysticks, which do feel a little bit loose when you first insert them. If you want them to be a little bit more form-fitting, just pull them out ever so slightly until you feel that friction and it grab on. That means that, yes, you do run the risk of pulling them out, they're just on ball joints. Who cares? Pop them back in, it'll be perfectly fine. The control panel looks pretty dead right now, just wait. There's a pipe down below, some fuse boxes, and some clear yellow sections as well. On the underside, there is a USB-C port, which means with a non-included USB-C cable, you can plug the darn thing in and have this powered permanently in the display. I love that. But Hot Toys, come on, you need to include the cable and maybe even a wall plug. This is a very specific amperage and voltage. How did I get mine to work? I plugged it into a battery bank and let the darn thing figure itself out, and it did. Some people have had some real struggles getting these USB-C powered accessories to work. If that helps you at all, use the USB-C cable and a battery bank like I did. If not, you'll have to do some trial and error. We won't be going into full detail right now at least, regarding the helmet and the head sculpt, because that's boring. Who wants to see floating heads and helmets? We want to see these on the figure and then we'll discuss them. Just know that they both look awesome, and the helmet is big enough that it looks like his head could fit inside. It doesn't, it attaches in a completely different way, which you will find out about on the figure. The helmet is fully detailed all the way around, and of course, so too is the head sculpt. This needed to be here. This is a mainstay. It's the flamethrower effect. We've got a clip section down below that hooks onto his gauntlet, and it's more of a purplish blue towards the superheated end, translucent in the middle. Then it blends its way into a much more fiery orange. It is translucent all the way through, so light carries through, making it look like a flame. When it's lit correctly, which is very important. Not all the time will this thing look fantastic. The sculpt work is, it's got bubbly sections, it's got licks of flame up the top, and towards the bottom it looks like a spiral as the fuel is being shot out of the gauntlet and ignited by the flame. Boba comes with two different blasters. One a little bit more classic, original trilogy inspired, the EE3 blaster rifle. The scope has some gloss front and back so it looks like a scope. The barrel is especially weathered with a ton of silver dry brushing, looking suitably metallic. I love the way that looks. And the stock around the back does have different detail from one side to the other, plus some wood grain effect. And I don't think that's just printed, it looks like it's sculpted on the surface as well. I mean, do I need to say more about this blaster? I certainly don't think so. It is iconic. This one is starting to be iconic. I just wish it had a name, because it doesn't. I did some extensive research, and as far as I can tell, people are just calling this Boba Fett's blaster pistol. One of my absolute favorite details here is there's a real metal D-ring down the bottom that moves backwards and forwards. That's something that you just don't see in 6 scale. Making these weapons in quarter scale, they can afford to pack a lot more detail in. Don't believe me? Just wait. I think you will when you see what this thing can do. It's a holographic Slave 1. What's so special, I hear you ask? Well, the sculpt work is crazy good, very sharp, and it looks on point. The shape, the proportions of the ship, accurate. But it's none of that. It's the fact that the wings can rotate between the flight position and the landed position. That's not all. The blasters on the front, they can rotate as well. It's the small things, the really little details like that make me so very happy. As a Star Wars collector, this thing is freaking brilliant. Not to mention, it can be connected in either the landed position or the flying position with multiple different poles to this effect piece and onto his gauntlet. The same thing can be said for the next hologram, Jabba's/Boba's palace. It slots in and then it plugs into the gauntlet. They've even got a teeny tiny little clear piece of plastic as the bridge between the tower and the main body of the palace. I don't want to spend too much time right now discussing the jetpack. It's part of his outfit, less so an accessory. Sculpt work is awesome, all the way around, front and back and down below. The thrusters can move, and yes, you can remove the missile. And lastly, a full array of hands. Normally at this point I'd be holding 2 of them and we'd be talking about the different gestures. I just want to focus on the insane level of detail. There's wrinkling, there's stitching sculpted in with this X pattern. We've got the panel on the back of the hand, we've got ribbing and leather grain texture. These gloves, they look super real. The only complaint that I have is we don't get enough of them. We do not get Close Fist, which is crazy to me considering he has a flamethrower effect. What we are going to do now, though, is get Boba Fett himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses, or accessories, or anything like that. For those of you who don't know, Boba Fett is my guy. If you'd asked me prior to Book of Boba Fett, Justin, who is your favourite character in Star Wars? I would have said, no question, Boba Fett. His design is iconic, and as a kid, I just latched onto that design for dear life, and to this day, I love original trilogy Boba. Luckily, I can separate this badass looking design for the character from his portrayal in the show. If you like the show, I'm so happy for you. That's fantastic. For me, I didn't. Luckily, this review isn't about the show, it's about the figure, who is sensational. He's very big, though. If you have space for quarter scale and you love Boba as much as I do and you dig this design, all the cards are in place, my friend. Go ahead and get him. He will not disappoint, I promise. Hot Toys quarter scale figures, they're the highest end. They're their flagship. The most amount of detail, the most paint, the best proportions, and really solid articulation. Not to mention the sheer amount of accuracy here. This thing looks like Boba Fett ripped directly from the show. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Boba's helmet. Something about this helmet in the promo pics and the blogger pics looked kind of weird, almost a little bit out of proportion. It was too long or too skinny, or maybe both, I don't know. In person, it doesn't have any of those issues. The proportions look great to me. It's nice and wide and it's squat, just like it should be. The visor is a separate glossy black piece of plastic, meaning it's not paint, it's a separate piece inserted into the helmet, so there's depth around the edges. The sculpt work is crisp all the way around, his dent is present, and even the comms port around the front is picked out in a nice shiny silver paint. You can articulate the rangefinder down if you so choose, and it feels sturdy. I don't think it's going to snap on you. There's a little bit of give to it by design. And the best part, his helmet is adjustable. If you find his neck is too short, you can move it up and down. That's because it's not on a ball joint. It's on this kind of foam block thing, meaning if you want it all the way up there, totally doable. If you want it all the way down and angled, making him look like even more of a badass, well, you can get that done too. His scarf, by the way, underneath the helmet is fully wired, and therefore posable. Dude, this head sculpt is breathtaking. I'm almost lost for words, and for me, that doesn't happen very often. Usually I can go on and on and on about a head sculpt. This one, it speaks for itself. You can see the skin texture, you can see all the detail. There's 5 o'clock shadow down below and on the top of his head where his hair would normally be. There's even a little bump on the top of his noggin, so it looks like a realistic bald head. There's the scarring from the Sarlacc pit. There's wrinkling, seeing as Tem is getting on in the ears. And that extends all the way down underneath the scarf and around the back of his head where there's even more wrinkling. There's not even a seam line. I have no idea how they molded this thing as well as they did and don't have a seam line. The expression is somewhat controversial. Some people don't like the smirk. I do. He's got one raised eyebrow and a super subtle smirk. Depending on the angle, he can look cocky, like right there. Or if you tilt it down, he can look way more mean and menacing. You can work with it. Around the back, I do currently have him wearing his jetpack, and yes, it is removable if you so choose. You can take out the rocket if you want to make it look like he's fired it and it's long gone. The rocket does have some sculpt detail around the bottom, and it's fully painted where it plugs into the jetpack, which isn't something that normally you'd be seeing. I didn't realize Hot Toys would go that hard with the detail. The paint applications, next level. There's weathering in the crevices on the surface, speckling of dirt and grime, chipping, metallic finishes where there needs to be, and the jetpack being as colourful as it is. It does add a pop to the back of what would otherwise be a very dark and simple outfit for Boba. If you remove the jetpack, it's fully detailed on the underside, and even on the thrusters down below, which are articulated. On the back panel where it would plug into, there's more weathering, there's more chipping and more dirt and grime. And you will notice, no more little straps. That means that number one, he's displayable from the back if you want to have him sort of looking around and then have these pieces visible, you can do that. Plus, you don't have to finagle that jetpack on his back. This attachment method is way better than those little straps. Don't believe me? Why? What are you, some kind of conspiracy theorist? Well, there you go, I attached it blind, and I guarantee you could never have done that with the original jetpack. Around the front, his armor plates are a little bit movable, I'm pretty sure they're attached with Velcro, and the finish, just as good as the jetpack. My favorite detail is his little screen for some reason says, hero? He's not really a hero, he's a bounty hunter turned crime lord. Still, it works for me having some kind of text printed in that little screen, a nice touch. He does have the Mythosaur logo on one side, and on the other side, nothing. Well, not nothing, there's dirt and grime, there's chipping, and some darker airbrush shading around the edges. The same thing goes for these armor plates. There's scratching, his Fett symbol, if that's what that is present. And there's even some lighter green speckling in the middle of the armor plates to give it some more depth. I haven't even mentioned the flight suit yet, and it's one of the best parts. It's all fabric, so that's great for posing. This shirt is the thinnest fabric here, and there's this almost checkered pattern on the surface. Then for the thicker pieces of fabric, they have some texture to them, and multiple rib sections, and they're layered on top of one another to give him a touch more bulk. The shoulder pads do insert up underneath the flak vest, whereas this vest with the armor plates, it's another separate piece, adding to that layering. His gauntlets are an asymmetrical design, different from one side to the other. We'll touch on that one in just a second. His dart, super shiny and metallic, then the red sections, just like his Return of the Jedi look. There's weathering and there's dirt and grime, plus some silver chipping and dry brushing. I feel like I might be overusing silver chipping and dry brushing, so I'll give it a rest, just for the next couple of shots at least. This little cover piece can be removed from the gauntlet, and that's because it has a party piece. You can insert the hologram either of the palace or the slave one, and now it looks like it's actually being projected out of his gauntlet. If you're wondering what it looks like with the palace on there instead of the slave one, ooh, that's even more convincing. The way it tucks into the jagged edges of the hologram effect, it looks exactly like a Star Wars hologram, and because it's translucent blue plastic, the light passes through it and makes it look like it's illuminated. Then the best part is you can rotate the darn thing around. If you want it to face a certain way, no problem. If you want the slave one in the landed position, it can be done. There's a separate little post that you plug into the bottom, and now the slave one has landed and still rotates around. Boba's belt area has always had a lot going on, whether it's Empire with the pockets hanging off it, or Return of the Jedi with the red ropes underneath, or Book of Boba Fett with the gold cowboy-style belt buckle, and the grey ropes, and the pouches, and the gold canisters. Around the back, we have more gold canisters, which are removable. In fact, they all are, all the way around. If you want to take them out, you can. You have some gold plates, which do have a nice metallic sheen to them and dirt and grime on the surface. Initially, I could have sworn all of this stuff was pleather. The more I look at it, this grain on the surface, I don't think is real. I can't feel it. It might just be printed. Which means this synthetic material, if it's not pleather, it's going to be way more hard wearing, and it's not going to flake and crack and peel over time. Now, these pouches I also thought were material. They're not, they're fully sculpted. I had to touch them to realize these are sculpted rubbery pieces of plastic. That's how good the grain, the color, and the texture match is between the material sections and the sculpted pieces. Which means that Hot Toys, you could have sculpted everything, including this holster. Speaking of the holster, there's this kind of felt material on the inside, and you can remove the pistol if you want to have him holding it. There is a magnetic closure, and getting the pistol all the way in can be daunting. There is a teeny tiny little hook on the inside of the trigger guard, which does get caught on the holster if you're not careful. So when you're sliding this thing in, you do want to make sure it's tucked on the inside of the holster, then you can slide it all the way down and close up the magnetic closure. Coming down to his pants, they look insanely padded. On the thigh area, they look very, very chunky. There is padding. Most of the heavy lifting for the chunkiness is just done by the thickness of the fabric, and that's fine with me. Less padding is always a good thing. It's an asymmetrical design with a pocket on one side, and no, you can't open it, it's stitched shut. Whereas on the other side, you have the holster, with the pistol inserted correctly, minus that hook snagging on the outside edge. This thigh strap is the bane of my existence. It's far too loose, and there's just so much of it. We will touch on that a little bit later. You do have some stitched lines down the front leading to some ribbed knee pads, and around the back, his skirt/karma. There is some texture on the surface. It almost looks like hessian of some kind. And underneath it, another karma, just a lot thinner, and you can almost see through it. I don't know why this is here. If it needs to be here for accuracy, then okay, fine, let it be here. For me, I would have preferred just to have one layer, and I would have preferred if it was wired. It isn't. His armored knee pads are nowhere near his actual knees. They're up here somewhere, underneath the rib sections. Now, having them this low doesn't make any sense at all. They should be higher because they're supposed to be knee pads, right? This is accurate to the show. His knee pads did sit a lot lower, and if you move them up, you expose this cut where the thicker material for the pants end and the thinner fabric continues down into the boots. For me, I'm just going to leave them down. Got some sculpted vent work on the inside, silver chipping and dirt and grime everywhere, some dart projectors with washers in the crevices, and some Velcro straps around the back, which is what keeps them in position. The boot covers are made of that same material as the belt and the holster, and you do have this little ribbed piece of fabric, just like the ribbed sections underneath the main body of the belt itself. Some lighter stitching for contrast, some detail work with a black panel, and even a fake zipper on the inside, which is a real zipper, yet not functional, and that's why I call it a fake one. His boots do have dirt and grime on the surface, and even on the underside for the fully sculpted tread. For a quick side-by-side comparison, going from left to right, we have quarter-scale Boba from Return of the Jedi, Book of Boba Fett, and Mandalorian in his Beskar armor from Season 2 of The Mandalorian. I'm alright with the height difference, even between the Bobas, as weird as that sounds. Don't forget, in the original trilogy, it was not Tamura Morrison in the suit. It was Jeremy Bulloch, R.I.P. So the height difference is totally fine with me. It's a different person in the Boba Fett outfit. I get it. They had Tamura Morrison go back and retroactively redo the voice lines in the original trilogy, so in your headcanon, if you do want them to be the same height, at least now you know they're different, so you can plan on how you're going to display them in your collection. The design does call back, as I've already mentioned, to Return of the Jedi with the red gauntlets and the armor plates being a little bit darker. The rest of the outfit, completely different. It's an all-new design for a new era of Boba. Compared to Mando, totally fine with the height difference, and the only complaint I have with Mando is that they should have gone chrome. What the hell? You knew, Hot Toys, that you were doing chrome in 6 scale, yet you still went hell for leather and didn't use the chrome in quarter scale. Going over articulation, normally with quarter scale Hot Toys figures, everything is on ratchets and it feels very nice and sturdy, which is exactly what I'm expecting from Boba. Starting off with his bucket, it's on a double ball peg and a ball joint at the base of the neck. Combined, looking forward to there, looking up to there, more than enough range for a rocket firing or flight pose. You also get swivel and a ton of pivot side to side. The arms will go up to there on ratchets, as expected, going forward and back, Also ratchets, plus a butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep underneath the outfit, ratcheted double bend at the elbow going just past 90 before the gauntlet collides with the bicep. Then for the wrist peg, a massive hinge and swivel. The torso is limited by the padding, but the crunch is ratcheted, so it does hold its position. Going forward to there as the armor kind of crunches in and deforms. Going back to there, swivel and pivot side to side. The legs are padded, the ratchets, they counteract that padding. Going forward to there, nice and clicky. Going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Double bend at the knee going past 90. The boots are a split cut boot design and they're on a double ball peg. I think it could be a hinge and swivel inserted at an angle. There's just no way of knowing. It's hidden underneath this pleather piece. They do go forward and back, you do get swivel and also some ankle tilt. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing is neither of these skirt pieces are wired for some reason. This outer one even has a hemmed edge that they could have inserted the wire into. Not just for dynamic posing, also to help manage them. As it stands, they just have a life of their own. The second annoying thing is a weird one. This thigh strap is just way too big. This is supposed to be a lot tighter on his thigh. You may be thinking, well, Justin, that's for posing. When it goes up his thigh to the thicker point, then it will sit tighter. If it wasn't loose, it wouldn't work as well. Actually, no, when it goes up the thigh, there is still a massive gap. They could have taken a lot of this strap away and it would have looked so much better. The third annoying thing, as incredible as this head sculpt is, and it is, skin texture, paint applications, likeness, expression, I love all of it, it should have had moving eyes. This, with the eyes off to one side, just a little bit limiting. The first cool thing is no more straps, no more tipping Boba upside down and having to stuff around with slotting the little pieces into the straps. They've used a locking mechanism and a magnet, and attaching his jetpack is super easy. Barely an inconvenience. The second cool thing is they're proving once again that quarter scale is the best scale for capturing the most amount of detail. Not just in paint, although the paint is stunning. Also, the sculpt work. The inside of this helmet is beautiful. There's leather grain texture, it's all painted, and the detail is on point. And the jetpack as well, there's even some sculpted detail on the underside of the thrusters and the back of the darn thing. The third cool thing is the diorama display base, and this is quite clearly Hot Toys going after quarter scale Star Wars statues. It gives him a height boost, it puts him in his element, and it gives him a massive presence boost as well. Not to mention the USB-C powered light up effect. You plug it in, you flick one switch, and all the LEDs turn on. Wrapping up on Hot Toys quarter scale Boba Fett, based off his appearance in Book of Boba Fett on Disney+. Quarter scale figures, they're in a bit of a weird spot right now. Hot Toys don't make a ton of them, which means he's likely going to be the only quarter scale figure in your collection. I don't foresee them making a quarter scale Cad Bane or Black Chrysanthemum or another Mando or any other accompanying characters. It seems like every now and then they're like, ooh, maybe we should do a quarter scale figure, and then they do, and then they just abandon the line. We only got Mando from Mandalorian. We didn't get Moff Gideon, we didn't get any other main characters. Now you can display that Mando with someone, this Boba Fett. This is a great figure. He is very, very solid. Articulation, accessories, detail, the head sculpt, the proportions, the outfit. I can go on and on and on, and I have in this overly long review. I'm so sorry. I'm very, very happy at the end of this video. But I do find myself in an odd spot. Do I recommend him, knowing full well he's going to be the only figure probably from Book of Boba Fett? Or do I not, citing that exact same reason? Who is this guy going to go with if you don't plan on picking up that quarter scale Mando? It's very, very hard to build out a collection when the company making the figures, they're not committed to the line, so why should we be? If you want this guy as your centerpiece, you adored the show, and you love Boba Fett, and you need this design in its biggest, most badass format, and you want to have this guy alongside your Star Wars statues, seeing as though it does have the presence to do that, then heck yeah, go ahead and get this guy. You will not be disappointed, as I've already said multiple times at this point. If you're not and you want to build out a line, maybe think twice. Potentially, this guy, he's not for you. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have pay in 4 and a loyalty program. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.